Night, everybody. I am so excited to be coming and yarning with you all. As I mentioned, I've had a few things cooking away in the oven, let me tell you that much. And the YUKU podcast has been one of those projects. It is such an honor to always be able to create content, to be able to use my platform and my voice in ways that align with my beliefs. And I'd also like to state at the start of every podcast, I'm going to kick off with an acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I would also like to acknowledge that I too am a visitor on this land. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that you're tuning in, wherever it is on this beautiful continent. It will always be Aboriginal land. It always has been Aboriginal land. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to talk to you briefly about the YUKU podcast and how it's come about. And then I'm also going to yarn to you about Naidoc week. And this is the first episode of this 3-part podcast. And I think it's fitting that we start this in Naidoc week. So the YUKU podcast was something that I have been planning or thinking about for a long time. I had been involved with a previous podcast. I've been on countless podcast episodes, but to own and run something by myself as a host is really empowering. Yuku in the Barkindji language means light or sunlight, and I had to use this word in the title of this podcast. As you know, I love talking about different topics and different areas and impacts that this country have put in the dark, issues and topics that our country has put in a box or put away in that dark cupboard. My work aims to pull them out and bring them into the light so we together can discuss them and find solutions to these horrific issues, these systemic issues that are impacting First Nations people, mothers, bigger bodies or fat bodies, people that are low socioeconomic. These are the issues and the topics that I talk about, and they need to be brought to light. Within saying that as well, I wanted to use a name in language. I myself am on a decolonial journey where I'm really connecting with my identity. After so many years going through university and high school, I was dedicating myself to English, dedicating myself to the white man's language. I have never sat down and actively participated in learning language, and I want this podcast, or I want this new chapter of my life to encourage me to embark on that journey. Now, if you don't know who I am, if you're tuning into this podcast, my name is AJ. I am a Barkindji and Latchi Latchi woman from my father, who is from a small town called Wukanya along the banks of the Barker or Darling River. I'm also a Birragubbi and Waka Waka woman from my mother, who comes from a place called Sherburgh Mission. Now, this mission was once the largest and oldest once was the largest, and it is the oldest in this country. This mission was responsible for slavery, human trafficking, many dark chapters, but like many people that come from this place, I am so proud to be a living descendant. So again, just a bit about myself, being raised with these two different identities, a father that was very much connected to culture. He speaks our language fluently, also being raised in that spirituality or those core beliefs. And then again, being raised on my mother's side, who is predominantly Christian and hold, those values, but also importantly, being forced to speak English, being raised on this mission. If they spoke language or were involved openly in culture, their children would be removed. So these two upbringings have really shaped me to be who I am. It has not always been a harmonious experience having two parents that are Indigenous, but very different opinions and views. And with my work, I really aim to demonstrate that First Nations people in this country are not a homogenous group. We all have different beliefs, different experiences, different cultures, different languages, and that's something that should be celebrated. In saying that, I'm also a mom to a beautiful 5-year-old. My daughter is literally, what is she? She's a light of my life. It is an incredible experience becoming an Indigenous mother. And once I'd become a mother, I was able to really understand what that means and what the women and the mothers before me have gone through for us to be still living on this continent, particularly after the arrival of the British and what we've endured over the last 200 years. My daughter has a father from a refugee background from West Africa, Sierra Leone. So I'm very proud to be raising a daughter with mixed ancestry. But in saying that, again, raising her to be whole and proud of all her different aspects of her identity. And that's something I share online as well, the complexities behind our lives. In saying that, content creation was not something that I had ever planned. If you told me that social media would be something that would be an active part of my life, or speaking publicly and creating, that would have been something I would have said hell no to. I never imagined this happening in my life. I never pictured having followers and, most importantly, a community behind me. I started creating content because I felt a level of silence around issues that were impacting me and pertaining to me. Be it beauty standards or systemic racism in Australia, these elements impact my everyday life. These elements are created and designated to make me feel inferior or like I don't belong. And that should simply not be the case. So I enjoy pushing the envelope with this country. I enjoy rattling cages. And that's from a sense of bravery, but importantly, a sense of necessity. Being a mother and having a daughter or raising her, I want to create change in this country. I want to create tangible change, and I believe that is done through dedication, hard work, and bravery. And I'd like to think as well, the community I've created online are very safe and welcoming, and I think that's an integral part as well when discussing issues that impact us. So within saying that, that's my introduction and our introduction to the YUKU podcast. But we're going to get straight into Naidoc Week. Let's yarn about it. Naidoc Week to many different people means many different things. Okay, let's recognize that as well. But for me, Naidoc Week has been something that I've been celebrating for as long as I can remember, quite literally. My mum has photos of us attending different Naidoc events throughout the city and then participating in them at school. For me, Naidoc Week was something that the school or my school made me feel really proud to be involved in. I grew up in a rural town, so I spent my primary school in a rural town with predominantly Indigenous and non-Indigenous or white people. So this week was something where I was able to feel proud of my Aboriginality. It was an opportunity to see aunties and other Indigenous people come into the school as well and contribute to that sense of community. And every time it came around, irregardless of being in year 5 or kindergarten, I always had a sense of pride. But it's also really sad. It's really sad that that sense of pride was not something that was instilled regularly. It was that one time of year. But in saying that, in 2022, I've seen many schools that work hard to incorporate Indigenous knowledges and peoples throughout the year. But also in saying that, some schools are definitely lacking with that recognition. So in saying that, Naidoc Week has been an opportunity for me to really be proud of my identity. And then again, moving into high school, I was able to participate in contributing to what Naidoc events would look like, providing speeches and things of that nature. And I guess that's where also my activism started kicking off, as well as many other Indigenous people. So we're going to get into the theme of this year. If you do not know, you should know. Naidoc Week every single year has a theme, which I think is incredible. Now, there's been many themes that I've loved, but this year in particular, I love it. This year's theme is get up, stand up, and show up. These words are all adjectives, and for me, it just calls my spirit and my soul. Now, this is another really important working piece around Naidoc Week. This is an open invitation, and I think Naidoc Week in general is an open invitation, but I think this year's theme is exactly that. It is putting the responsibility or the ball in non-Indigenous Australia's court. It is a call to action. It is a call to arms to stand up, speak up, and stand up in solidarity with us as First Nations people. We throughout the year are working hard to see changes in this country. If it's simply existing, or if it's creating, or if it's, again, continuing as the traditional owners of this land in a contemporary society, that is participating in activism. I like to say online, us simply breathing and living is a form of activism. But on the other hand, this is a real time for people that label themselves as allies or people that want to get more involved in their allyship, this is a real opportunity. The other working part to Naidoc Week is the abundance of content that is out there, the abundance of learning and resources that are available. Now, as I talk a lot online, we also have offline. So there's a real importance in recognizing the two. Indigenous people exist online, but most importantly, we exist in society. And arguably, from my experience, existing in the real world is the hardest job. I've said it before, anything that a racist has said to me online, I have had 7, 10, 12 times worse said to me in the flesh. Any type of harm or hurt somebody has said that's race-based, what I've experienced in real life is way worse. And I'd like to say, or I'd hope to say, that not many Indigenous people have had that experience, but I would like to say many would have. So Naidoc Week in particular, with this abundance of resources that are available online and in the real world, so in your local community, it is a real opportunity to learn about the realities of what we're experiencing in this country. It's a real opportunity for you to meet us, to get to know us. So many people, again, online have said to me, I don't know how to connect, or I don't know how to find community. Search up your local Aboriginal Land Council. And particularly this time of year, search up what's your local event in my area. What is a local high school doing? How are ways that I can get involved? You might not be Indigenous, but you might want to help the curators of that event. You might want to be a volunteer at a Naidoc event. You might want to be a volunteer at the next year's Naidoc event. There are so many different ways that you can contribute to supporting and even just participating and showing up. Now, again with Naidoc, for us, Naidoc is a celebration, but it's also a really important moment of recognizing our survival. When I hear singers, when I hear their voices, be it more traditional or even just standing behind a guitar or a beat, there is something that moves my spirit. There is something like a deep calling in my soul that is celebrating that we're still here. Being around community, seeing children run around and be proud of their identity, it is our form of self-determination. It is our form of cultural continuation. We've been coming together on this continent like this for over 80,000 years. Us gathering like this for ceremony and coming together as community is something that we've been doing since the beginning of time. But this is a real open invitation for everyone else that calls this country home to come in and get involved. Now, in saying that as well, I'd also like to, have sentiments around, don't just block this experience to 7 days. Don't just pigeonhole your involvement with Indigenous people to Naidoc Week. Oh, well, I went to a Naidoc event. Tick, I'm an ally. Oh, I engaged with content online. I'm an ally. No. Use this as an invitation. What do you do when you meet somebody new? You have a yarn, you get to know each other, put your feelers out, figure out them, they figure out you. This is that moment. This is that moment for you to identify or figure out what areas of our experience in this country, A, you would like to learn more about, and B, get involved with. Don't be a passive learner, be an active learner. Now, in saying that as well, you can't tokenize Naidoc Week. You can't just be, I did A, B, C, and D, and I contributed, No. This involves deeper learning. Now, I would also like to state this can often be a responsibility of our government in this country. I think our government putting Naidoc Week into a week is offensive. We look at other continents such as Black History Month, and I've heard plenty other Indigenous people say as well, we are a people that have lived on this continent for 80,000 years and you're going to give us 7 days? 7 days? 80,000 years in 7 days? Okay, Australia. But again, irregardless of the dates or the timeframes, it is our responsibility to embark on a journey of allyship and learning. And even as an Indigenous person, this is something that I'm dedicated to. I'm dedicated to learning about my own culture, but also the culture of the land that I'm living on. I want to know more about the Gadigal people. I want to know about how they use their waterways. I want to learn about how, these streets in these areas were in fact carved out by the Indigenous people. I want to learn about what happened with the first fleet arrival survival, but also not just Gadigal land, the Barramuda community as well. I want to learn about these people and how they interacted. These experiences and these stories are so invaluable to our nation's identity. And if our government is not leading that, if our government is not recognizing the importance, we as a people have to do so. In saying that, if you are someone that is a carer, if you are someone that is a parent, or you have younger people in your life, this is a great way as well to engage them. I think Naidoc Week in particular is a great opportunity to engage with the youth and younger people, and a great introductory point for them to get to learn and know more. And why not do that together? Why not do that with your families and your communities? Naidoc Week has always meant so much to me, and as I've gotten older, it's probably meant even more. I reflect on the years and my aunties attending, sitting up with them at the tents and grabbing a feed or looking around at the different art. These memories are core memories for me, and I think these memories should be core memories for all Australians. We should all be actively participating in this week, and again with reflecting on this year's theme of get up, stand up and show up. Indigenous children are still being removed. Incarceration rates in this country are continuing to rise. We're seeing social stratification continue to grow, where the richer are getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer. This is just something that's normal. We have substandard living conditions in this country for a variety of Australians, particularly in rural and remote, but also the urban setting. But arguably, these housing crises are impacting Indigenous communities as well. These communities are underfunded. Indigenous communities in this country don't even have access to clean water. And I'm not saying all these facts as poverty porn. I am from one of these communities. My father lives in one of these communities. This is the reality of our people. Indigenous people tuning into this right now know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm telling you all of the above. And hopefully many of you as well tuning into this. Now, the point of talking about these different aspects that are impacting our Indigenous people are to encourage you to get involved. How can you participate in being an ally? Is it volunteering? If it's economically helping? Is it raising awareness? If it's participating in different groups in the community? Do you know your local Aboriginal Land Council? Do you know your local Aboriginal AMS? Your children's group? What's happening at the local high school or primary schools? What's happening at the PCYC or the Breakfast Club? How can you get involved? Use this week as an inspiration. If you are living on this land, it is your responsibility. If you're laying in bed, you have your beautiful pillow, you put your head down, it's your responsibility. If you love jumping in your car and going to your favorite location, be it nature or be it, the Gucci store, it is your responsibility to get involved. We have protected and preserved this beautiful land, and let Naidoc Week be that invitation. Let Naidoc Week be that invitation where you start walking in solidarity in a way that you never have. So by the next year Naidoc runs around, you're able to say that you participated in this. You're able to say how much you've grown over the last 12 months, and you're able to reflect on your own journey. Naidoc Week is something that I'm sharing with my daughter, and I often reflect about what my parents taught me. They didn't really give me a spiel about what this week means. They didn't really provide a definition to this week. Rather, it was my own experience when they took me along to these events. When they saw the relatives or the mob and we saw these performers, they didn't tell me, be proud of who you are, be proud. It was that organic, it was like I think the word is a osmosis? I don't know. It's biology. She may or may not have done biology in year 10. It's like when you're in the environment, you just absorb it. That is what Naidoc Week is for me. That is what Naidoc Week will be for my daughter. It is an organic learning experience, and your age doesn't determine it. So it doesn't matter if you're 5, if you're 5 months, if you're 50. It is something for you to learn, and that is the reality of Indigenous knowledges. You absorb it. You grow with it. You learn with it. It is something that is a part of you. It is not an other. So just like the advice I'm partaking in as a mother and raising a child, it doesn't have to be defined. Learning about Naidoc Week and learning about Indigenous people within it or embedded to it is something that is going to be your own journey. Sometimes you have to sit back, reflect, open your eyes, listen and learn, and get that inspiration to show up, speak up, and show out. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been the first episode of the YUKU podcast, a 3-part series. If you have enjoyed this episode, be sure to let me know, share it with your community and your connections. Many more exciting topics to come from dating while fat. And we're getting into the all bits and bobs. We'll be talking about intimacy. We'll be talking about everything. We'll be talking about how men try to act like they don't want it, but when they love it. We'll be digging into all of it. And we'll also be digging into the awkwardness. What's it like having a big body and intimacy? We'll be yarning about it all. So if you're excited to hear about episode 2, be sure to let me know in my inbox. Share this first episode. And I want to hear about what Naidoc week was like for you. How did you grow? What did you learn? Let's yarn about it. Thank you very much for yarning. And as always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Bye.